Hello, everyone, and welcome to Alta Live. My name is Beth Spotswood. I'm Alta's Special Projects Director and Digital Editor, and I don't know, woman of all trades. But I am so excited to welcome you to today's conversation with Chris Sickels. If you have seen the current cover of Alta Live, you'll say, what a cool illustration. No, guys, it's not an illustration. Chris has actually created sculptures. He makes these physically, and he's going to show us, he's going to tell us about his process, how he does it. We are so excited. Chris has worked with Alta multiple times, and he's an absolute joy both to speak with and to work with. So today we're going to talk about kind of how Chris creates the work that he does for Alta and for everyone else. This is an especially visual episode of Alta Live, so I hope you're excited. A bit about Chris has an incredible resume, and I encourage you to look online. We've got it on our website, but very briefly, Chris Sickels grew up on a small family farm where working hard was the only option. Things had to be fixed with what was on hand. Now he creates 3D illustrations and stop motion animation with what's at arm's reach in his studio, making images come to life with textures, light, and elbow grease. Chris has won a million awards. He's done all sorts of incredible work, including his work for Alta. And we're so grateful to welcome him here today. Before we dive in, I do my sales pitch. You guys, if you haven't already joined Alta as a subscriber, please consider doing so. $50 a year gets you 4 gorgeous issues of Alta as well as a special gift. Right now, that special gift is a collection of our cartoons. When I encourage you to subscribe to Alta, keep in mind the work that we do is hiring people like Chris to create these incredible 3D images that result in our gorgeous covers. And Chris is going to show us how he made this. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat. Please do consider supporting us with a subscription. This interview will be recorded, posted to Alta Online later this afternoon. Pop your questions into the chat for Chris. And it is so great to see where folks are zooming in from Brookline, Massachusetts, Texas, LA, Santa Ana, Oakland, Cambria, overcast South San Francisco. I am in Nevada, California. Chris, you are not on the West Coast. Where are you zooming in from today?
I'm zooming in from Indiana, specifically Greenfield, Indiana, which is East Central Indiana. So
Welcome.
thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Can you I I've kind of turned the reins. I've turned my hosting reins over to you in terms of being able to share some images. I'm hoping that you first, before we share, what was the assignment like when our creative director, John Gecky, said, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to do 25 books that define California. What's your process like?
Well, John's very trusting, and so the brief was very short. And he said, he didn't really have anything specific in mind other than sort of trying to figure out a way to encompass what these books could be about or what this list would be, but then also something that sort of was iconic for the region, for California. So that's kind of where I started with. Being from Indiana, I'm a bit removed from California. We lived in LA for a few years back in the right around the 2000s. So it's been a while. It's been a minute, but I still remember a lot of the flavor of of California for sure. So yeah, so I just start digging around. Sometimes it's a list of words, it's a list of thoughts to kind of key things off, and then I try to just draw with a pencil and see kind of where it leads.
All right, are you ready to share and
I
show us
can share. Let me do that.
that process?
So what we have here is sort of um, one of the where the sketches kind of led to a character that I felt sort of encompassed California a bit. She sort of has uh, aspects to her outfit that kind of touch on the flag a little bit, and I thought maybe that would be a way to kind of subtly fold California in there. Um, she's kind of what I would consider a book hunter, somebody that's smart, witty, confident, strong, and felt like maybe she could be our thread through this for the cover and the spread. Um, so what other things I thought of was I researched old or more established bookstores in
That's City
California.
Lights.
That is City Lights. I thought perhaps that could be something that could work for the cover. Um, Another cover idea was to kind of have the Golden Gate in the background and sort of managing this, um, the person that has all these books that they want to read but they never can read. They've got their nightstand that's got a stack that's 3 foot high. Um, Another sort of how do you know, can you fold what I think of what a hammock is like the ideal sort of break and way to unplug, and could you fold that into the way that the bridge is constructed? So I originally had thought of that might work better as a spread. And then there was another one sort of, having just a bookstore cart that's loaded with all 25 books and um, dogs are always great, but I wasn't exactly sure about the dog at the time. So and then lighthouses
And we
again. I think
have
a
that.
lot.
You ended up doing that as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the ideas that I send John, and I try to not to talk a lot about them. I just try to um, condense the sketches into a nice little pile of 3 to 6 ideas and concepts, and bounce them off John and see what he and his team feels. And he came back with they really liked where the Golden Gate concept was going, but they wanted to see it in format for the cover instead of the spread. So that's where this came from, and that's that's sort of what the final was built on. Um, and so for that, I just had to kind of figure out a way to construct the bridge in a way that it lived in my world, but then still kind of reference the iconic presence that bridge has, um, without getting too lost in the details, but trying to, not it's not architecturally to scale, but it fits for the world of the model, right? So,
What do you mean by your world? What does your
uh,
world kind of entail?
so I guess one of my main goals is to, like any artist, is to present the world through my own eye, I guess. And when I work in dioramas, sometimes, and I have nothing against like scale models, but I really like to try to keep my world wonky, and my world is the perspective is always forced, or you could say uh, off kilter a little bit. Even the characters, their legs may be too long, or their face may be a little too asymmetrical, but that's sort of how I see the world. So I try to fold that into the things that I construct, as opposed to trying to make everything sort of to a real life, 1/12 scale or something like that. So when I say trying to build things like that, it's always I always try to run things through I guess I call it my filter, or my way to kind of keep things wonky, because I feel like those flaws sort of are what makes my work unique. So I try to embrace those.
Okay.
Um, So this is another little, just a short little process video. Just shows you how all the strings were glued down. Those are just
Oh.
old-fashioned clothespins.
Clothespins.
Yeah, I love those. Those work great for a lot of things. Um, and then just a lot of red string, really. Um, so what this is sort of what I call these a fly through. So this sort of shows you the set outside of the camera lens. So it shows you a bit of, oops, my bad. Shows you sort of how it works. So this is the sculpture on set under lights, and then this is a small little fog machine that I use to kind of create that iconic uh, San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge fog that you always see. Um, so once I got that to kind of the layer that I wanted, then I would pull back to the camera. So what this will do, this will pull back, and so you'll sort of see where the set exists. So right there in the
Yeah.
foreground is the camera. You'll even see that there's a little bit of the cotton ball that I've pulled apart to put in the foreground to kind of create another layer of fog. Um, and the water is just a plastic sheet over fabric to kind of get a nice blue texture. Um, and I've got some cool lights and warm lights to try to capture that. So that sort of shows you uh, uh, behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah. And then once oh and okay, so can we go back to just
Yeah.
the cover photo? So once you do this, once you've kind of created this and you send this to Alta, to our creative director, John Gecky,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously he's going to be like, this is fantastic. Yes. But do you ever have to make edits? Do you have to tweak?
Oh, occasionally, yeah. Sometimes there may be a compositional element that I've overlooked, or maybe occasionally a light is too hot. I really try my best to kind of make sure everything is as tidy as possible before I send it off. But occasionally there's especially with layouts, maybe the sky would be need to be a little bit lighter for the text to read better, or would need to be a little bit darker. John's always again, very trusting, and I try to uh, give him plenty of room around the image. They call that bleed, so he can crop in or pull out of the layout a little bit. Um, and so occasionally there are some revisions, but I try my best to keep it as tidy as possible. Um,
Right. All right, take us to your next, the
so the
lady carrying all
spread.
the books.
So when they decided this was the what they wanted to do for the spread for the opener, so the original dog I had drawn was sort of rough. It didn't really have anything specific about it. So I did a little research about popular pets in specifically the San Francisco area, and one of the dogs that came up was a German short-haired pointer, and I thought that was just a that's like a dog that we'd have around here for like hunting birds or something. So I was surprised that it was sort of a city dog. So I love the pattern and the texture of it. So I felt like if I could fold some of that in there, that may sort of strike a chord with a few of the readers, possibly. And it gave me sort of another way to kind of enhance the concept of what I would consider a book hunter. You know, somebody that would she not only is a book hunter, but she's got a pet that's perfect for finding the right book. So the challenge was try to figure out how to build the scale model books. Again, trying to keep them wonky, but trying to uh, stay a little bit true to the original design of the books. And I tried to lean on the original covers. So I did a lot of searching on eBay, trying to find out of print things, and I just needed to see the spine and sometimes the cover. Uh, and then like the palm trees, it's a small palm tree, but it's really not a palm tree. I mean, so I try to, again, how do I create a palm tree that fits in that world that she
What is
lives
that
in?
made out of?
So it's a whittled stick, and then those are just bits of fabric that I kind of found with the right sort of texture,
Fabric.
and then I cut them out and shape them into the palms. And that just shows you there's a pencil there to show you the scale of the books. And
So
again,
two,
they're not perfect reproductions. They're sort of painterly interpretations of books.
but are these our books that we've selected?
Yeah, yeah. So you'll see that there's a little printout there that John sent me of his stack to make sure that I had the right editor list or the right list that had been picked, and then even some visuals of what some of the spines were in case I couldn't find them online.
So, folks, just in case you haven't had a chance to grab our latest issue, we have gathered a panel, 25 books, novels specifically that define California. And so it sounds like Chris, what you did was make little minis of each of those 25 books.
Yeah, yeah. John said it wasn't required. He said that seemed a little over the top, but to me it felt like if she was going to have 25 books, it might as well be those 25 books. So it was just kind of one of those fun things of like if you go this extra step, it's just going to make it hopefully resonate that much
Yeah.
stronger with a reader.
What's
Uh,
this? What's this? metal.
So this is the book cart, and I love doing soldering. So this is just copper and brass, and sort of built to kind of mimic these shopping or these book carts that you'd see in usually sometimes older bookstores where uh, they can stand upright with the stack of books laying on top of each other, or they can lay down like a shelf, and then they use those to go and stock their shelves. And I just thought it was a super cool contraption. And again, if anybody's sort of uh, a bibliophile, they probably are familiar with these sort of odd sort of book carts. So again, trying to find ways for her to uh, move these books in a with a contraption that sort of seems fitting to her personality.
And her, we chatted very briefly before we went live. The woman that you've created here on the cover and dragging along her 25 books. How did you kind of pick a personality? How did you pick a woman, a character for this
Um,
assignment?
it kind of came out of the sketches, but she just seemed when as I'm sketching, and some people would call it doodling or brainstorming. But as you draw and draw and draw and try to work on compositions, and these characters start to emerge, and she just seemed to be a character that had all the properties that I thought again a book hunter or this book fanatic would have. She's um, um, got a confident stance. Her hair's kind of tidy. Um, but then I thought for her clothes, if they could kind of play off of the flag, the colors of the flag, maybe that would be a way to kind of again um, throw tribute to California, to the region, but not be overly obvious. And even like her green belt plays off the little bit of a um, green that's in the flag, and her
And her
star is green.
earrings.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So just trying to find ways to um, put little seeds in there, just to kind of every little aspect and detail hopefully add up to the larger context of the image.
All right, so here's our dog.
Yeah, there's the German short-haired pointer, and again, uh, he's not really painted in the exact, you know, accuracy of the dog, but trying to use those same colors that's throughout the palette of the whole piece, and trying to keep those colors alive in the dog as well.
What is the dog made out of?
So I use a polymer clay, which is like uh, it's a craft clay that you can bake in a home oven. It's relatively um, easy to bake and quick to bake, and accepts paint really well. So it's not like a terracotta. It's sort of a yeah, it's a polymer clay. Sometimes it's called Fimo or Sculpey, but it seems to work really well.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll use house paint to paint larger backdrops. So this is the sky backdrop for this particular piece. And then this again is a fly through, and this was um, the Maltese Falcon, that which was one of the books. That was what I think the original cover looked like. So this will kind of fly you or scan you through the set a little bit.
Oh.
And you'll see in the environment that I try to really play those colors and push those sort of magical sunsets that you get.
And I love that the books are a little askew, It's so
Yeah, it's not
artistic.
it's not a real tidy pile, is it?
How long does a project like this take for you?
Um, well, for sketches, it's typically anywhere from 3 days to a week to do sketches or brainstorming, and then for finals, it's typically 5 to 7 days probably to do a final. And so in this particular one, we did the cover first, made sure that was all good, and then that all has to come down, and then you build up the next set. So um, yeah, but that's where she's at. And then of course John takes all that information and organizes it in a way that it's a complete package. And it's my goal is to create an image that hopefully captures somebody's attention, but also stays out of the way enough that everything else can be prominent. And then the spread too, which I loved. pushing those colors like that. And I don't know. Oh, and then so occasionally the pieces can be sold as sculptures down the road if people like it. Sometimes pieces don't really hold up very well, but this one seemed to, I don't know, did just seem to be a nice little package, even outside of the context of the set and the environment. Um, so it was kind of fun to kind of find a way to kind of make it exist on its own.
And someone has purchased her.
Yeah, yeah. So it's always great that they find a home someplace outside of my dusty studio.
John's very jealous someone else got her.
And so then the even though these pieces were part of it, I felt like this could be standalone as its own. And I like that the dog kind of has the Maltese Falcon sort of under his paw. I thought that was kind of cool.
Your attention to detail is extraordinary, Chris.
Uh, Thank you.
All right, are you ready for some audience questions?
I am.
All right, all right. Anything else visually to share with us?
Let me see. I think I might have. So the thing that I thought that people seem to react to are these. I do these little time lapses of creating a piece up. So I used to work in museums as an art handler, like at the Cincinnati Contemporary Art Center. So I was one of my tasks was to uncrate and create pieces. So I love packaging these pieces up because everything seems nice and tidy, and people react to these probably they almost uh, they get more excited about these than they do the actual pieces sometimes, I think. But it's kind of fun to just see everything get tidy put up. Because I originally I recorded it to so I could show the person who received the piece, like this is how it comes out. This is how you kind of everything kind of goes together or comes apart. Um, but then they kind of caught on as this as their own sort of uh, I don't know, visual treat, I guess. So, but yes, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
This is so cool. All right, so we got a bunch of questions. The first
Sure.
is, let's see, do you have an assistant? Are you riding solo on all this?
I have a dog that's probably walking around while I was talking a little bit, little Boston Terrier, but no, it's pretty much by myself. Occasionally I do recruit a kid to come up and help, especially with the animation projects, when they're in the right mood. But yeah, mostly solo.
Um, who takes the final photo shoot? If it's you, did you have to study photography?
It is me. I had a foundation in photography, sort of just black and white, dark room photography. Then when I was in school, that I loved. But traditionally, I'm trained as a painter, so the photography has sort of been a trial and error um, of self teaching and reaching out to other photographers in my region that I can kind of pick their brain about how, especially early on, how how a camera worked and how certain lights worked, and they really showed me that if I painted it, if I lit a piece like I was taught to paint, then it would become an image as opposed to documenting a sculpture. And I think when those photographers helped me learn that, then it really opened up the idea of I could make these sculptures work as illustrations.
Chris, you are a very cool person, as lots of people are pointing out. Raymond asked, do you have a favorite subject matter?
Uh, well, I'd say anything that has to do with adventure or traveling. That I guess those are probably the favorites. But as an illustrator, there's always you're getting topics all the time. So I'm fascinated. I'm lucky to be able to do things that change if from time to time.
Harold asks, can you talk a little bit about your art education?
Sure. I went to a very small high school. I had the same art teacher for through junior high and high school, Mrs. Martin. She was the first one to sort of taught me that my drawings could take me places. From there, I went to the Art Academy of Cincinnati. I spent 4 years there studying essentially painting with they didn't even have an illustration program. It was sort of you had some illustration classes. So um, but that's sort of where I learned what illustration was and how the industry kind of worked. That's where I got my feet kind of wet there. But and then a few years after school, I started to dabble with puppets and these little sculptures, and my paintings eventually evolved into what I do now.
Um, Charles asks, talk about your books. His kids are big fans.
Oh, I do occasionally do picture books here and there. There's one called Here Comes the Garbage Barge, and most recently, one called Build, about construction equipment. Um, so yeah, the books are on a totally different timeline. They usually take 12 to 15 months to do a picture book.
Whoa.
But yeah, they're always neat projects because they seem to have such a much longer shelf life than than typical editorial work. But it's
You
neat
get
to know people still like them.
You're getting a shout out from Charlie Paget. Shout out from France.
Oh wow, wow! Thank you, Charlie.
Scott asks, what camera and lens do you shoot with?
I use a camera. It's a DSLR, so a digital manual camera called a Canon. I believe it's a Mark III, so it's probably going on almost 15, 20 years old, but it's still plugging along. Um, Lenses, I use a macro lenses sometimes for tight work, and then I really like tilt shift lenses where you can really play with uh, depth of field and focus, and then even some perspective, um, tweaking perspective a little bit to help sort of um, make my pieces feel like they're not just miniatures, but feel like you're sort of inside the world when you photograph it. So thanks for that question.
Kat asks, your studio, we can kind of see the background of your studio. Um, are these all your models or are you collecting works by other artists?
These are all my models here. The usually the work that I collect are more paintings and drawings. So I have work from Carter Goodrich and Mike Mignola and Greg Ruth and Peter DeSev. A lot of my illustration heroes I try to collect work of. But yeah, they're constantly inspired by the work of others for sure.
There's a ton behind you.
Yeah, I've been in this studio space for almost 25 years. And I'm just above my garage, so it's nothing fancy, but it works pretty well for what I do.
I know you've got a big family. Are there rules about letting your kids in your studio?
Oh, it's a total open door. And when they were younger, I mean they're older now, they're 11 and up, but when they were younger, they loved to come up and to sculpt and paint and even sort of interact with the toys, or to them they were toys. The they would help with stop motion animations and that type of stuff. And just this week, my our daughter, she's 11. She's out of school now, so she was up making jewelry with sculpting jewelry and stuff. So I still got one that likes being up here, but the rest of them are over it. It's dad just plays with dolls all day. It's kind of they're over that.
Raymond asks, do you have a favorite subject matter?
Uh, I don't. I guess broadly it would be figurative. I really enjoy characters. Enjoy trying to uh, capture emotional connections with facial expressions and uh, gestures of the figure, and I guess that's where I feel that the real heart of my work is in the characters.
All right. So as we wrap up, we're almost at time. I'm curious. So if you go to Chris's website, which we will link, my wonderful colleague Liz Casillas will send you guys a link to where you can see Chris's work in Alta, a link to his website. I'm also curious, you have a blog and you posted a couple of months ago. You've got you mentioned kind of you've still got a little gas in your tank. What what is what's your legacy? What do you want to do next? What's your dream gig?
Uh, I'm always cautious about that because there's been some, like especially as a young illustrator, you have dream clients that you think would be the ones that will just take your works to the next level. And when I got to work with some of those clients, it just was nothing. It just didn't quite live up to the hype. But it always seems like the projects that uh, where you have a client that really has confidence in what you do and you really admire what they do, and there's a trust there. That's when the images that really work. That's when things really come to life. I think John is a perfect example of that, and everybody at Alta. But um, for me, it's just to keep doing what I'm doing. Hopefully, to tell stories that not only excite people but maybe inspire people, and just keep people watching and seeing what will come out of my pencil, and see what happens.
Chris, you are awesome. Everyone, this was wonderful and fascinating. What a fabulous presentation. Everyone is amped. Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you, everybody.
taking the time to speak with us today. Chris has taken the time out of his hard work just to do Alta Live. Before I do my final thank you, folks, I want to invite you. We're on hiatus next week. I'm on vacation. Um, Author Leo Bardugo. We've got a big feature of her work in the new issue. She'll be our guest. Then I hope you'll join us for that. Check your email later today for a recording of this video and anything else that we've talked about, including Chris's work. Chris Sickels and Red Nose Studio, thank you so very much for your work in Alta and for joining us today.
Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.